All right, let's jump right into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going on a seriously fascinating trip back in time. We usually think of school as this modern invention, right? Like maybe a few hundred years old tops. But today we're looking at the ancient Babylonian education system from literally 4,000 years ago. And trust me, the archaeological discoveries coming out of Mesopotamia are painting a picture of student life that is just shockingly familiar.
I mean, think about it. Did school stress, parent bribes, and student trash talk really only start in the modern era? We always kind of romanticize the past, don't we? Imagining these ancient scholars sitting in perfectly tranquil silence, purely motivated by the love of learning. Well, what if I told you that students thousands of years ago were absolutely terrified of being late, that they got in huge trouble for talking in class, and had parents who literally tried to bribe their teachers for better grades? Let's uncover the big reveal here. Human nature and all the chaotic drama of the classroom hasn't changed a bit in 4 millennia.
Okay, moving to Section 1, the first schools, myths versus mud bins.
So, let's start by looking at a place called the Edubba. This literally translates to the House of Clay Tablets, and it's widely considered humanity's very first iteration of a school. For the longest time, historians just sort of assumed these ancient schools were these grand, state-run public universities with massive halls. But the actual truth? Well, archaeologists unearthed a site known as House F in the city of Nippur, dating all the way back to the 1740s BC, and the reality was incredibly humble. It wasn't some sprawling campus, it was literally a private residential house measuring just about 45 square meters. These were essentially just small, private tutoring businesses run right out of an expert's home. Just picture this, a tiny, sunlit courtyard, barely 10 square meters in size. Good lighting was everything back then, so instead of sitting in dark, cramped rooms, students would huddle outside in the sun to carve letters into their clay tablets. Honestly, you can think of those clay tablets as the ancient Babylonian equivalent of a modern iPad. And what happened when they finished an assignment? They definitely didn't toss paper in the trash. Instead, they dropped their tablets into a mud bin in the corner to soak, so the clay could be recycled for the next day's lesson. Sometimes, those old assignment tablets were even used as raw building materials to patch up the walls of the house. Pretty clever, right? Though it is worth pointing out that this education was highly exclusive. We're talking a tiny elite, mostly male, although records from cities like Sippar do show a very small number of females receiving this private tutoring too.
Which brings us to Section 2, Studying a Dead Language. So, what exactly were these ancient students spending their days doing? Well, it involves this massive historical irony that is probably going to trigger some serious flashbacks for anyone who's ever struggled through a tough foreign language class. See, in their everyday lives, at home, on the streets, these kids spoke a language called Akkadian. But their main job in school? To completely master Sumerian. The catch? Sumerian was already a dead language by this time. Literally, no one spoke it in daily life. But it was still the absolute authority language for academia, religion, and literature. It perfectly mirrors that modern struggle of students being forced to learn Latin long after the Roman Empire fell.
There's actually an ancient proverb that perfectly captures the reality. A scribe who doesn't know Sumerian? What kind of scribe is he? That shows you exactly how essential this totally frustrating, incredibly difficult task was for their social standing. Basically, if you wanted to be anybody in Babylonian society, you had to spend years memorizing a language that nobody actually spoke anymore.
So how did they actually tackle this? The curriculum was super rigorous and broken down into 2 main steps. Step 1 was just the grueling basics, mastering this massively complex cuneiform alphabet and endlessly copying out vocabulary lists. We're talking lists categorizing gods, animals, plants, stones, plus all your multiplication tables and standard contracts. Then, once they somehow survived that, they moved to Step 2. This was the advanced stuff. They studied high-level Sumerian literature, complex mathematics, land surveying, and even copied down sections of the famous Epic of Gilgamesh. So it really was this comprehensive mix of basic literacy, STEM, and advanced humanities.
Next up, Section 3, the path to power. Now you really have to wonder, why on earth would a student put themselves through such a grueling process? Because graduating actually opened doors to some of the most lucrative and powerful careers in the ancient world. A graduate became a dubsar, a highly respected scribe. And in a society where very few people could read or write at all, holding that title was basically the ultimate key to the kingdom. These guys became temple and palace administrators who managed the entire economy, tracking harvests and wages. They became royal secretaries handling high-stakes foreign diplomacy.
They wrote business contracts, they drafted legal verdicts, and the absolute top tier of these students, they became medical doctors and royal diviners. And let me tell you, those diviners were the ultimate power brokers. During a national crisis, say a foreign invasion, they advised the king directly and were rewarded with massive estates and unimaginable wealth.
Moving on to Section 4, beatings and bribes.
Getting to that cushy position of power was definitely not a walk in the park. To really grasp the daily grind, historians look at this famous piece of ancient literature called Edubba. It is the spectacular, darkly comedic record of a student's incredibly stressful day. Basically, our ancient student wakes up, begs his mom to hurry up and pack his lunch of 2 breads, and physically runs to school, only to end up late anyway. From there, it is just a day of pure, unadulterated anxiety. According to the text, a student would earn a physical beating from the gatekeeper, the teacher, and the principal for pretty much anything. Talking without permission? Beating. Leaving without permission? Beating. Accidentally speaking Akkadian instead of Sumerian? Oh, absolutely a beating. Or just having bad handwriting. It was literally a terrifying gauntlet of discipline.
So, what does a stressed-out, bruised student actually do? He begs his dad to intervene. And yes, we actually have records of the hilarious 4,000-year-old equivalent of the parent's bribe. The father basically invites the strict teacher over to their house, seats him in the place of honor, feeds him this lavish dinner, bathes him in fine oils, and gives him new clothes and a ring. And the result? A complete 180-degree attitude flip. The teacher suddenly stops all the scolding and enthusiastically declares, "You will be the best among your peers. You have become a true intellectual." I mean, it is just a brilliant, timeless piece of ancient satire calling out the utter hypocrisy of these teachers.
All right, Section 5, Ancient Keyboard Battles.
So, now that we've seen how students dealt with their corrupt teachers, how did they treat each other? Well, brace yourself, because they essentially invented the online comment war. We have actual translated text capturing a fight between 2 rival students, where one launches into this incredibly petty trash talk. He says, "You don't know how to divide a house or hold a measuring line. What kind of scribe are you?" He's literally mocking his classmates' math and land surveying skills. It's the exact same toxic energy you'd see in a modern Reddit thread or a heated Twitter debate.
And of course, the rival fires right back with a deeply defensive, super petty comeback. "I can divide houses and measure fields. You are the bottom of the scribes." Wow, bottom of the scribes. This back and forth escalated so much that the teacher actually had to intervene, yelling at them to stop fighting in the Hall of Wisdom. And how did this petty drama usually end? Well, archaeological evidence shows that students who fought were sometimes punished by being literally chained together and forced to copy clay tablets. No joke.
Finally, Section 6. Some things never change.
Let's just take a step back for a second and look at the big picture. When we look at these ancient clay tablets, we aren't just reading dry, dusty academic records. We are looking in a mirror. Sure, the tools have definitely changed. We evolved from heavy wet clay to sleek electronic tablets. And the audience has beautifully changed, shifting from a tiny, privileged elite training to rule an empire to an inclusive, democratized system that's meant for absolutely everyone. But the core of the experience, the human nature, it stayed exactly the same. The fear of being late, the stress of harsh teachers, the desperate parent bribes, and the incredibly petty rivalries with classmates, it is literally identical. 4,000 years of separation, and we can still instantly recognize their anxiety and their humor.
Which brings us to our final thought for today's explainer. If an ancient Babylonian student were to sit in a modern classroom today, what would surprise them more? The incredible digital technology all around them, or the shocking realization of how similar we still are? Thank you so much for joining me to explore this incredible slice of history. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll see you in the next explainer.